Okay, so today I am pleased to welcome Mariam Fatma, an HR professional specializing in talent acquisition, HR policies, operations, and process optimization. She is currently working with Tajer and Flamingo, where she contributes to building efficient HR systems and supporting growing teams. So, hello and Assalamu alaikum, Mariam. How are you?
I'm great, and it's great to be here, Manur.
Thank you so much. So, Mariam, let's start with the question. So, my first question from you is that could you start by sharing your journey in HR and what inspired you to pursue this field?
My journey in HR started from my university years. When I was studying, I always had this interest in HR and marketing both, and I was always at first confused in which major I should go with. Since my interest in both were equal at that time, during that time, I had several talks with my seniors, teachers in both marketing and HR field, with some people within the industry as well. And one of the turning point for me was when I did my internship at PepsiCo as an HR intern, and that really made me think that this is the field that I want to choose. This is the field that I want to explore more, which is why I delved into the HR field. um but there's no as such, you could say, there's no as such reason for why I did not go with marketing. I felt like that HR and marketing are very linked together, and that is something that I believe we will be talking within the podcast as well. For example, in talent acquisition, during my time at PepsiCo, I learned that employer branding helps a lot. And employer branding is something that is really deeply linked with marketing. And even talent acquisition is something that is deeply linked with your skills of persuading other people, with telling them stories and about your company. When I say stories, I basically mean about explaining them about your company in a way that benefits them. So that's why I chose HR.
Okay, so what recruitment strategies have you found most successful in attracting the top talent and especially in the digital first era?
All right. So I worked in talent acquisition for both Pakistan and US and Philippine market as well. So I worked on all of these markets, and I believe that when it comes to talent acquisition in terms of digital era, it depends on the target market you're targeting at that point. For example, if we are hiring for a startup and that startup is in Pakistan, so the thing that I found most useful is using LinkedIn. When you post a job on LinkedIn, most of the people in Pakistan mostly use LinkedIn. They are not that active on Indeed. They're not that active on other job platforms. So it's mostly, you could say, advised to post your job ad on LinkedIn. And the second thing that I found out was when I was working with Pakistani talent pipeline is that a lot of people don't focus that much on the job post. They don't focus and read the whole job description, which is quite unfortunate. Which is why when I was hiring for UI UX designers in my first company, which was a startup software company, I found out that a lot of people who had applied had not read, who had not gone through the job post. They were just people who were just in their first year, when we were looking for somebody more experienced with 2 to 3 years of experience. So the second tip I would give to people is, even though if you're looking for jobs on like LinkedIn, you should make a really good profile, because the second thing that recruiters do is headhunt. Headhunting is really important, and you can do that on LinkedIn and on other platforms as well. So on LinkedIn, there is this Boolean search, which basically means, for example, Manu, you're a candidate for a UI UX position, right? So when I search UI UX and I see that there's this UI UX designer at this company or and I see your profile in it. So I basically go in your profile and then I see how many years of experience you have. And if I believe that is a good fit for my company, I reach out to you. So the first step is to post on LinkedIn, and the second two is to headhunt, and the third which is really underrated in Pakistan, is to get references. For example, when you're recruiting for any position, it is always beneficial to talk within that industry and to talk with your peers and with the colleagues that you're working with. For example, if we're hiring for UI UX designers, I reached out to my colleagues in UI UX and I told them that we're looking for this pers- um, these skills and abilities, and these are a few requirements that we have, and if you have any references, because those are the people who have more knowledge about their own industry and about their own field, so they have more references, and that is always a better approach. Even when I was hiring for internationally, we used to take references really seriously, and we used to have a bonus for referrals. So that really helps you get a lot of references. And the third thing is job portals. You should always know when you're recruiting to what job portal you should be targeting for that specific position. For example, if you're recruiting internationally, LinkedIn does help, but Indeed is much more useful in that term, and it also depends on the position itself. For example, there might be a few positions where, for example, people might be more active, not even on Indeed, but on other job platforms. So you can easily search about that on the internet. You can also talk to a few fellow HR professionals who are already recruiting for such positions. That also helps, and then you can go around that. One of the other things I would say in talent acquisition when you're recruiting in the digital era, for like top talent, it is always beneficial to have employer branding for your brand, whether that is on LinkedIn or social media platforms that you are using. It is always beneficial because that way there is this already layer of somewhat trust in between the candidate and the recruiter, and it is much easier to approach them, and it is much easier for them. They already know about the company, and there's a chance that you get more qualified candidates using that approach.
Okay, all right. So, Mariam, how important do you think employer branding is for talent acquisition? And what are some practical ways to strengthen it?
All right. So when we talk about employer branding, it is one of the most important things in talent acquisition, particularly because, for example, when I was hiring for an international company, one of the things I recognized was that their employer branding was really weak. So it was really difficult for us to get candidates for that position because a lot of people did not know about that company. So one of the things that is important is, even if you're not focusing on your social media platforms, it is always good to have information out on your company websites, on your company career pages. It is always good to have some information out on LinkedIn, on your company page, even if you're keeping it completely company based information, like for example information not regarding employers, but more as in regarding the business side. It is still really advised to have some information about key members of your company, so people know who they can reach out to in terms of if they want to ask any questions about your company. Also, that really helps in terms of building a trust. Second of all, when I was working in PepsiCo, there was a huge focus on employer branding, and unlike other Pakistani companies, one of the reasons that they put this huge emphasis on employer branding is that they actually believe that if you have a good employer branding, not only are your employees satisfied, but also there is a chance that you won't need to go around and headhunt a lot. You'll already have people coming up to you and approaching you. Also, since we're talking about employer branding, One of the things that I added wanted to talk about is that a lot of people believe that employer branding is specifically for candidates or for people who are not working in that company. Employer branding goes both ways. It is, I would say it's not equally important. It is more important for you to focus on employer branding for your own employees than only than not only for other candidates. When I say this is when I say that is what I basically mean is, for example, if I am working in PepsiCo, they put a huge focus on what their employees think about PepsiCo. They have this EVP line, which is Dare for Better, which basically means that if um, they give their employees the empowerment to do better, they get, like, that is the whole point of the company, to make employees feel more empowered to do better in their lives, to do better in their tasks, to do better in a lot of other aspects as well. So that is one of the things that they continuously for a year I have seen have been putting on their LinkedIn. And they've not only putting on their LinkedIn, they had this whole huge launch within their own company as well, where they talked about it, where they did several workshops around it to actually have a proper employer branding for their own employees. So I would say it's equally important to focus on your employees when you're talking about employer branding. For example, here in Tajir, we have a few company values in which there is respect, ownership, customer centric. When we're talking about these company values, we always make sure when somebody is being onboarded, we do a whole orientation session with them where we're explaining them the company values as well. Because those values should be integrated in the company, not just on the social media platforms. And that is that is more important in employer branding. But if we talk about the aspects of candidates or for potential clients, I would say for employer branding, one thing that a lot of companies don't focus on is Google My Business. Google My Business is basically Google Maps. This is something that I worked on in my first company as well. It was a software company, and they had this office in DHA Phase 3. A lot of people, when candidates were coming, since they previously, like, I think an year ago before I joined, they had an office in Gulberg. So those candidates were coming even though we had sent them the links, that but there were times they were coming on the wrong location. So I put a huge focus on Google My Business, that was Google Maps. I added all of the latest pictures of our office. I added the location. I added the services that our company provides. I added the social media links in that as well. And I made sure that I asked all of the people working in Chukur in my first company that if they could give a review, their honest review about about that company on the Google My Business as well. Because when a candidate is searching, for example, Manur, if you're coming for an interview, I don't know about um uh, everyone, but I believe that you will obviously search about that company on Glassdoor, on Indeed, and on Map as well. So if you get good reviews over there, there's a higher chance that you'll be more interested in applying for that company. You're more interested in preparing more for the interview of that company. And then I did a huge focus on Glassdoor on and on Indeed as well. I'm so sorry, I have a throat ache, so I'm a little
It's all right.
stuttering right now. But when we're talking about Glassdoor and on Indeed, um, a lot of companies don't put focus on that, while I think they should. One of the reason is it is your job portal. A lot of people, before accepting an offer, will go on Glassdoor and on Indeed and see the reviews over there, especially since it's anonymous. So there's a higher level of trust between the candidates on that platform, using that platform. So um, even if there's a negative review, I always say you should, as a company, always answer that or respond to that on Glassdoor and on Indeed. And also, at times, a lot of companies don't put focus on putting reviews out there for Glassdoor and on Indeed. So I believe um, that when I joined my first company, they did not really focus on that as well. So I asked the employees that if they could put some reviews, especially people who had been in that company for years, if they had could put some honest reviews about that company on Glassdoor and on Indeed, because that way, when a candidate is accepting an offer, they already know what the company culture is like. And the other thing I would lastly say is that employer branding is not only digital, it is also based on word of mouth. For example, in Tajir, I've seen that our employer branding name might not be that strong on social media, but it is really strong in a few universities, and a few universities which is it has a really strong presence in is like lumps, LSC, FCU, and these are just a few couple of universities that are coming at top of my mind right now, in which I've heard that a lot of candidates who have applied, they have told them that their friends work over here and they've heard really good things about that company. So employer branding is not just digital, it is equally as important for it to be, you could say, word of mouth as well. And for example, if I have a good experience at Tajir, whenever I'm going in my next company, or whenever I'm talking to another person, even if I'm working at Tajir, it and I really tell them about the culture, and that really impacts the employer branding aspect as well.
Okay, so as you know, there has been a rise of HR and AI tech. And so, how do you balance these both in the sense of automation? And what tools do you use for that?
All right. Um, so I see a lot of hype on LinkedIn as well regarding AI, and honestly, AI has helped a lot. But I'm more interested in finding out that how people basically balance it, because one of the things that I've seen is that recently, when there's a hype of AI on LinkedIn regarding AI being used in HR tech, a lot of people still don't, they gatekeep what platforms or apps they're using for those automations. Um, which really doesn't make sense to me, because they're just writing on LinkedIn just to get the hype or just to get followers based on that. So I would be really honest. In my first company, I did not use an ATS at all. My first company did not have an ATS. I did everything on Google Sheets to maintain talent pipelines. One of the things that I was using in AI was obviously ChatGPT, and I had a couple of prompts made. For example, I had a couple of prompts made for making emails. I had a couple of prompts made for reaching out to candidates. I had a couple of prompts made um, for my internal workflows or making internal documents as well. However, it is always something that is goes without saying is you should always double check it, because AI does hallucinates, AI does makes a lot of mistakes as well, and AI does not have the context that you have of your own company. And even when you're reaching out a candidate, it is always better to personalize that message as well. I do understand that templates do work, but at the same time, it's really important to personalize that message. When I went to my second company, which was an international company, we were using AI for a lot of data analysis. For example, we had to make different recruitment, basically different recruitment data points. For example, time to hire, time to fill this position, average candidate to offer placement data points, and there were a lot of other data points that we were basically calculating. For example, how many people applied to that position, how many went to the first stage, second stage, third stage. So in that way, a lot of ChatGPT really helped me in data analysis. and but particularly we were just using ChatGPT for that. And I was also using Bamboo HR as an ATS, and there were a few AI tools in that which I was using. Currently, since you mentioned as well in my introduction that I'm also working freelance as a freelance in Flamingo AI, it's an AI interview taker. And I think it is one of the AI interview taker that I will suggest people if initially. For example, we have a position for a marketing associate, right? And
Mhm.
we post about it. Candidates reach out to us and apply. We shortlist a lot of people, and if we have like thousands of candidates applying, obviously, even if we're shortlisting, they're going to be cut down to 500, 300. There, there's still a lot of candidates for a human to reach out to, right? It's going to take us weeks to do that. So we can simply send them an AI interview take taker link, and it's a Flamingo AI interview tool, and they can take the interview, and after the interview has been completed, we basically get a summary of how the interview went. For example, in our internal criteria, if we had the internal criteria of attention to detail, problem solving, communication, or anything else for that matter, it will give us ratings based on that. But we also have the option to review the whole recording. So that is something helpful, but I say that should be only used in positions where there's a lot of candidates in the pipeline and there's an urgency. Because otherwise, I will suggest people to take interviews by themselves, recruiters by themselves, so that way there is less, you could say, there is less biasness in one sense. But at the same time, I would say that this really this AI tool really helps in the sense कि obviously if we ask any HR person to take an interview of 300 people even within 2 weeks, um they're obviously going to take a lot of time. They won't be able to complete those interviews. It might be possible they might have found a better fit before completing those interviews, right? So not everybody got a chance. But through this tool, every candidate gets a chance so they actually have a better chance to get employed. So this is one benefit, but obviously there should be a human interaction before that. People should be informed that this will be an AI interview first, and then we'll have an actual interview with the hiring manager, so that there's this level of trust. And also, I believe that even though AI has done a lot of wonders, but they don't do that better in giving the context of the company. And thirdly, I would say one should use AI just to automate, for example, even in operations, automate tasks that do not have interactions with human. Like if I have a task to create Excel sheets, I can automate that using AI. But if I have many tasks regarding onboarding, I would not like an AI to give an orientation to any new joiner. I would like to do that myself. So, keeping empathy in mind, keeping in mind that a human is always better when interacting with another human rather than an AI. Only use AI to get your, you could say, get your operational side tasks done, but don't use AI in your human side of HR.
So, Mariam, can you share an example where you faced an hiring challenge?
All right. So I was recruiting for a position Bubble.io developer in my first company. It is a very niche position, and you can rarely find lesser than 200 people in Lahore for that position. So it was a challenge to for that position, because we did not have a lot of applicants for that position. So I had to do a lot of headhunting. I had to do a lot of outreach, and I had to, you could say, basically uh, ensure that I'm getting references, even from candidates. For example, if you had a candidate who had done that interview with us and we had a good relationship with them and a good experience with that candidate, and that candidate had a good experience with us, I asked them if their friends are interested in this position as well, since we had multiple positions. Fortunately, we were able to close that position in, I think, lesser than 2 months. However, it was a little challenging considering it was a niche position. Second of all, recently, since I'm hiring for um, Tajir, and we were hiring for an accounts position. Unfortunately, I found a lot of people a little unprofessional since they ghosted um, the interview process not once but twice. We had an on-site test, and candidates did not come not only once, and after I reached out to them and rescheduled another on-site test, they did not come twice as well. So that was a little challenging for me to try to understand the market of accounts position. So I would say that challenges are always there, but it truly depends on how you take that. One should take a challenge as if, for example, I have a challenge. I should say, what is the root cause? All right. So when I see what is the root cause, I'm able to understand how I'm able to solve that problem. So always take it as a puzzle, always take it as a fun side quest. Don't take it as a burden. Always believe that, all right, I might be not getting qualified candidates right now. Let's see what other ways I can look at this position. Since I was once hiring for I don't remember the exact name of the position, but it was a new position for me, search engine optimization professionals, and it was a new position for me. So I did my own research as well, and I reached out, and since it was a low priority hiring, basically low priority hiring means that there's a lot of other hiring going on as well, and even if it takes a couple of months for that hiring to be finalized, that is totally fine. So it was a little challenging considering that I was not well versed in that knowledge. So I did my own research and I started reaching out to people on LinkedIn rather than posting it as a job. And the reason for that was since it was a low priority post job ad. So basically, if I had posted it on LinkedIn, I would have got around 1,000 candidates at least. So and I would not have been able to reach out to those candidates because of, you could say, scarcity of time. So it was better for me to do headhunting along with my other tasks. So that is how I overcome those challenges.
Okay, so as an experienced and a professional HR, what advice would you give to the fresh graduates who want to build a career in HR?
All right. To fresh graduates, I would always say to explore a little more before heading into any field or career that you're going into. One of the things I say is going for an MTU position is a great opportunity for people to explore their interests, because unfortunately, a lot of people who I know who are coming into the industry as an HR professional have this thing inside their have this perspective basically that it is a chill, easy going job, which is not true at all. HR is not an easy job. Obviously, I would not say any job is easy. Each job has their pros and cons, and HR does has his own pros as well. Sometimes there isn't such a huge workload, there isn't huge stress, but sometimes there's a lot of hiring going on, there's a lot of policies that are changing, there's a lot of um, internal things that you're going to be having to take care of. Internal, for example, I'm recently working on health insurance renewal. So it's not an easy job. And if you take it as an easy job, you're not going to perform well. You're just going to do the basics. So, first thing, do explore before jumping right into any career. Second of all, if you're truly interested into HR, please when you're reading theoretical, try to understand how that things work practically, because if you get a better idea of things, how things work practically, and you could, it's not necessary to do an internship to understand that. To be very honest, you could hear podcasts, you could read on LinkedIn how things are working practically. You could talk to people within the industry, reach out to them on LinkedIn, ask them, all right, this is something that I studied in performance management. How do you do performance management within your company? So, because once they have this, you could say, basic understanding of how things work practically, it is one, much more easier to get a job. Two, you already have an idea if you like that career or not. Three, when you go into your first job, you already, you're already really excited, and you're already there to make changes within the company. For example, when I joined my first job, I already had done an internship. But rather than my internship, one of the things that I usually used to do was I used to go on LinkedIn, and I used to read about some changes that were coming in the industry, about how career fairs were being take place, and things like that related to HR, and not only just HR but the overall industry. So when I joined my first job, I was not the only one who was learning. My, you could say, my seniors were also learning from me, from my ideas. So that is a really good approach as well. Also, fourth of all, never give up. Never give up at all. I know that at times a lot of some students get like dis encouraged, discouraged, basically, because they haven't found a job that easily compared to their peers. And I would say that everybody has their own timing in life, and everybody should not be comparing themselves to each others. They should rather be focusing on, okay, what things they could improve in themselves. Do ask feedback if you've ever given an interview, and what things do they excel at, what strengths do they have. Focus on that as well. If you're focusing on that, don't worry at all, you will get an amazing job. And best of luck to all of the future HR leaders.
Okay, so Mariam, let's wrap it up. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing your insights with us. It was a pleasure to.
It was a pleasure as well, Manur. I feel a little disheartened that I couldn't answer in the way I should have, because I had a little health issue. But it was amazing, and you're doing an amazing job at reaching out to HR professionals, getting feedbacks, getting insights about the industry and about how things work practically. And I hope that this podcast helped at least a few people who are fresh graduates and thinking about their career and making a difference. And if anybody ever wants to reach out to me, feel free.
Okay, thank you so much, Mariam. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.